Hi, I'm Gary Null, and I'd like to welcome you to a continuation of our ongoing self-empowerment series, a series of discussions that allow us to look at life, how to improve it, how to be happy, how to deal with a lot of the mistakes we made, and also to get people remotivated to re-engage their brain, their creativity. In other words, to not stay stuck. And right now, this discussion, and it's also for a lot of people at home, after all, this crisis we're in at this moment has caused a lot of people to get into very deep emotional states, depression, anxiety, people losing their jobs, they don't have a source of income. And when you think of the people most likely to be hurt, it's not your professional class, it's not your, let's say around 17 million professionals, lawyers, doctors, engineers, accountants, professors, highly educated people, generally with advanced degrees, and who are living at the upper middle class level, anywhere from, let's say, $150,000 to $1 million a year. But it's the person whose jobs have been taken away because of, because of the shutdown. They have no backup. The average American can't write you a check for $500. And that's really tragic, because think of the expenses they have to have paid for every month. Medicines, food, rent or mortgage, car payment, credit card bills. And when they can't pay those, interest rates go up, they're under stress now. And so the question is, what does a crisis teach us about our lives? How can we grow from a crisis? So for all of you who are at home, and I'm in Texas, and we're at the end of a anti-aging clinical study. It's not medical, though we have a whole group of physicians, MDs, PhDs, who are reviewing what we have to do in order to prove that a body can actually change. New stem cells in people in their 70s and 80s and 90s, to remineralize their bones. People frequently have osteoporosis, brittle bones, to get their skin tight and elastic again, get their hair growing, nails growing, pink and hard and thick, get their energy up, get muscle mass where they had fat bellies. And all this is being done based upon the criteria that they established. So everyone has taken a whole series of blood chemistries and physical examinations and blood pressure and blood sugar, etc., and psychological examinations. And then at the end, which is coming right up at us, they'll do it all over again, and then independent people will decide, was this statistically significant? All right, and then we know the first time we did it, 7 months ago, we had a big spike in statistical significance. In fact, I got very positive letters from people that oversee some of the most respected anti-aging organizations in the world. You know, great job, it's unique, what you did is like Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile, all these things about the results we got. But I've been doing this my whole life. I've done 44 clinical studies. I've counseled tens of thousands of people. I've done around 500 health support groups over those 50 years. And yet, if you presented any single person who came into my office with problems, and 3 months, 6 months, a year later, they don't have those problems, or they're substantially alleviated, that would be considered subjective. Well, who knows why they got improved? Maybe they really didn't have the condition, maybe it wasn't medically diagnosed, maybe they really didn't have the tumor or blocked arteries. This is the statements I get in all the time. But this is objective. So when we show what we're able to do with diet, with supplementation, with exercise, and de-stressing, and meaningful, deep dialogue about the issues of life, and then we show a positive rising of all their health indicators in a good way, and the reduction of C-reactive protein, homocysteine, fibrinogen, triglycerides, low-density lipoproteins, and body mass index, the fat is going down, the hydration levels coming up, energy is going up, then we will establish a whole new standard in the science of aging. And there are a lot of people doing this at home, and they really have an extra challenge. At least here, that we're all in quarantine. If you were in this room, you'd see all the attendants in the room have masks on, and we have a state-of-the-art commercial, big, 7 7-stage air filtration. This whole room, the air is filtrated constantly for every kind of germ, bacteria, mold, danders, allergens, etc. And we have this throughout the whole place. And people are outside about 7 hours a day. So when you're in 80-degree weather and you're getting that sun, you're getting vitamin D, you're exercising, the hormones kick in, especially what we call the feel-good hormones or the runner's high, the endorphins, natural opiates the brain creates. And then the quiet settings, the time when we sit every day for 3 hours in nature, green time, and we have beautiful gardens, rose gardens, and they write in their journals whatever's important to them. So this is very exciting. So I decided to talk with all the people one-on-one and ask them, what's the one thing that if you'd like to change in your life, you could? And I boiled it down to this, and let's see if you resonate with this. I was unprepared for the crisis, the corona crisis. I hadn't listened to you in the years where you said stock up in case, after Hurricane Sandy, after Hurricane Katrina, after all the fires in California, after the flooding in different parts of America. This past year, just 9 months ago, Arkansas flooded, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi flooded. Hurricanes, including in Florida, where I live, and on a animal sanctuary ranch. We were prepared. The animals, no person was hurt, none of the staff, and none of the animals. I had prepared. So the feedback I'm getting now is, I was unprepared for everything. I just never figured it would happen to me. I was always watching television and seeing it happen to other people, but I was disconnected. It was almost like it was an existential event. It would be here today. We would see where Puerto Rico was blacked out, water was not available, people had to drink toxic water. They weren't prepared, they didn't have backup food, generators, nothing, medical supplies, zip. But that was them. That wasn't me. I saw in Houston where just less than 2 years ago, 21 trillion gallons of water fell in the city in 1 week, the most ever recorded anywhere in the world. 21 trillion gallons. Water was 5 feet high. There was no place for it to go. Couldn't drain. Water table was what? Plus it's got clay, toxins from 1 million pounds of chemicals that were in the oil refineries. That's the oil refinery capital of America. And yet people said, well, I don't live there, and I'm not experiencing that. So, and other people, homes burning all over in Colorado, a very wealthy area in the mountains where you get these beautiful views of the city at night and the lights, and all those very high-end houses washed out. A 22-foot high mudslide came and just destroyed hundreds of homes. In California, in fact, I had been up to the wine country, to the International Film Festival, and actually I won the International Film Festival for Best Documentary. And I decided to drive. I went clear up to the end of the state and drove clear down to the end of the state. I just wanted to see, I'd done this maybe 6 times over the last 30 years. I wanted to see what had changed. And what I saw was too many people living in too small an area without supportive infrastructure that was sustainable. Yeah, they have a 450 plus mile canal that goes from the Sierra Madre, so when snow melts in the spring, it feeds water down. And yeah, the little Colorado feeds 39 million Americans their water. But take a look at Lake Mead. Take a look at the little Colorado. Not a drop of water from the little Colorado makes it to the ocean. And what about the drought? And now we were just told that we have the worst drought in history in America now in the West. I mean, everywhere in the West. So now it's official, all right? We cannot support the people there. 39.5 million people in California, and there are a lot of people who are leaving the state for a lot of reasons. It was once like a mecca of beauty and progressive minds, and not now. It's been corrupted by the body politic, overdevelopment, and people wanting to make money without looking, what is the likely outcome? What is the consequence? And then we have the farm belt, where they used to have multiple crops. It was not unusual to plant 10, 20, 30 different types of crops that would come out at different types of different times of year. So you didn't have to harvest everything at once. And now one crop, 500 acres, 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres. And I'm thinking, wow, these monocrop mega farms using massive amounts of glyphosate, Roundup, toxic pesticide. And what happens when it's their year to get drought? It's their year to get flooding. And that happened this year over a lot of the 7 states that are known as the breadbasket states in America. At the same time, massive drought around the world is causing people to run into food shortages. There's already 1 billion people on the planet out of 7.7 billion people who are food insecure. We have at least, minimally, right now, about 50 million Americans who are food insecure, meaning they don't even have enough food to eat to meet their body's requirements. So I'm looking and I'm saying, is anybody prepared for anything in America? I mean, are we prepared? Do we save money? Do we stop buying? No. We're living as if it isn't going to happen to us. Somehow we're immune from it. And we're not. There's not a place in America where you could go, not in the mountains of Vermont or Massachusetts, where you can say, good, this is perfect, no problems here. I mean, even where I'm at, for the first time that anybody could record, including neighbors who've lived there 70 years, this county had an 80-mile-an-hour storm that came through, that came out of nowhere. They're calling it cell storms. Just like you have now rain bombs. You'll see this massive cloud formation and suddenly water just drops, no longer just raining, it's dropped massive amounts. You see that all the time. In the ocean, sailors will talk about a white squall, calm seas, 3, 5, 7-foot waves, normal, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a 30, 40, 50-foot wave, boom. And a lot of people have died because of that. And yet, we cannot explain it scientifically. There is an explanation, I haven't heard one that to me is really plausible. So now we lost 8 trees here, big trees. There's probably another 3,000 trees on the property. So the eight does not devastate the aesthetics or the natural quality here, but you get an 80-mile-an-hour wind, you're talking about hurricane level, category, tropical storm or hurricane 1, it's somewhere in between. That's a massive storm, but it was the wind, not just the water, the wind. So now, whoa, it's happening where you never thought it would happen, historically has not happened. So that's what we're faced with. And now take a look at the seriousness. We have people who have gone to emergency rooms because of domestic abuse. This is sad because it tells me that if someone cannot coexist peacefully, joyfully, constructively, in a positively challenging way, in an enclosed environment, an apartment or house, and if they're abusing the weakest people, the children, the most vulnerable, then what does that say about who they are? Does it mean that they're underneath that social facade of being able to fit in and do their work, that there's a really dark energy? Yeah, it does. It means, well, then which one are they? Are they the person that doesn't beat up on anyone when they're working, but you get them in a quiet environment where they can't run from their inner demons, and then someone's going to feel that. Now, that's not everybody, it's a lot of people. In fact, I was just watching a video of 2 emergency room physicians in California talking about how many people are coming in who are physically abused, and it's rampant. And then what about the people who get bailed out? The people who don't? The people who use a crisis to profit from? I remember being down in New Orleans, and I really love New Orleans. I love the people of Louisiana, the food, the music, the culture, the traditions. I go to Mardi Gras, it must have been 10 Mardi Gras. And then after Hurricane Katrina, you would see tarps, blue tarps you put on, roof to cover a breach Generally, you can buy them for around 40, 50 bucks. Someone's charging the government like $2,000. But then they get them from a supplier who charges them $1,000, and then the people putting them up are making, they're charging $700. And you're thinking, wow, that's not right. And yet right now, as many people as can are exploiting a situation, exploiting the crisis. Those who have power and those who have contacts. So what's this teach us? It teaches us this. If you're not willing to stand forward and learn your lessons in life, then the universe will teach you some harsh lessons. If the only time you pay attention to a crisis or a problem is when you have your heart attack or stroke, or you're broke, or you're abused, or being abused, or in some way not cooperating. If you have no food to eat and you haven't stored anything and you haven't prepared anything, you've mocked preppers, made them look like they're all redneck, racist, misogynist, Islamophobic, xenophobic idiots. Well, how about the people who simply realize that if they can't change the circumstances in their life, maybe they can better prepare for anything that might happen. That would be reasonable. So here are the lessons I believe that we can learn from a crisis, any crisis. First and foremost, are you in the right place? All right? Take a look around. Take the time to study where you're at. Are you living a life of balance? Meaning, are you spending enough time at everything that is necessary? Meaning, shouldn't I know about the weather patterns? Shouldn't I know about the water quality and the soil quality? Shouldn't I know if there is a problem, what is the likely type of problem that's going to happen to me? If it's Miami, it's going to be rising tides. Right now, tides are coming in, and you get the stink of the water, the standing of the water with mosquitoes, and the loss of quality. And yet people are going there instead of leaving there. So they're living in denial. Most people live in denial. So look at anything that is likely to go wrong and historically has gone wrong with your environment. And then if you find that the scale is, I've enjoyed this place, there's a quality of life that I really appreciate here, the weather or nature or the people, but now one storm can change all that. The insurance adjuster who came to my property, my ranch in Florida, told me that I had more damage, because I have lots of palm trees, than any other person that his company insured in Florida. And then he offered me all of 3%. That's 3%. I was supposed to eat 97% of the damage, though I've been paying him a high premium for insurance for 25 years and I never once filed a claim. So I said no. So then I learned what it takes. And I found out, for example, that when I went to ask roofers to come and just look at my damage, and my lanai, that's a screen that goes over your swimming pool or, a deck, that blew away, and electricity went down. I had 9 different things that I needed to get repaired, like my water was out. It took minimal 6 months to a year to get a person to even come and tell me how bad the damage was and how long it would take. And then I was told, for example, by the lanai guy, it will take 6 months to come out to look. It'll take another 7 to 9 months before we can repair it. That means you're going to have to live without that for a year, year and a half. The same was true for the roof, the electricity. Even to this day, 2.5 years later, there are people on my block that still have tarpaulins on their roof. Not a single person has a backup generator. Now, I have a backup commercial generator on both my main house and my guest house in the barn where the animals are. And I got a new water system in, and I got electric in, and I got in the bobcat and raised some of the trees were down and restaken them, saved them. And so what I've done now is I've made the entire property 100% capable of meeting at least a 200-mile-an-hour storm. So I have food stored, I have a generator up off the ground that's commercial that works off 3,000 gallons of propane. That's enough to run the house for at least 5 months. Because when I saw how long it took to get the electric back on, it was over a month, and water was almost 2 months. And you go down to a restaurant and there'd be a line outside to go into the restaurant. And they had bad water too. They were boiling their water. Well, I happen to know you don't want to eat anything from boiled water because heavy metals are going to concentrate in that, and boiling water doesn't destroy all microorganisms. Remember, there's bacteria that can live at the bottom of a volcano. But it was a teaching moment. Now, fortunately, I had done as much as I could before this. After Hurricane Sandy, I made a pack. I made like a backpack. And in it, I put, for example, waterproof suit. I put in also a radiation suit. Why? Why would I? And they're lightweight. They only weigh like a pound. Why would I have radiation gloves and headgear? Because what if Indian Point, the 2 nuclear reactors just 38 miles north of New York City, were to crash or have a solar storm, a corona wave hit and knock it out? Well, first of all, you're looking at least a year to get that repaired because the parts are made in China. So whatever happens in one part of the world is going to happen in that entire hemisphere belt. So you're going to have China have meltdowns. So they're going to use what resources they have for their own people first. And then when they can get to you and other people in other countries. But also I was thinking, how are the people going to get out? There's what is called a 10-mile safety barrier around Indian Point. Does that mean if there's an accident that the radiation is going to stop moving with the wind? Let's say 11-mile-an-hour wind, which is about normal. Within 6 hours, you have impacted and are now poisoning 20 million people living within 50 miles of New York City. There's no escape route. There's none planned. So what if you live on Long Island? And it would take you, depending upon where you live, it's going to take you maybe 5 hours just to get, first you got to go into the city to decide to go north, west, or south. Now on a Friday night in New York City, where I've lived for 53 years, with normal traffic, it can take you at least a 2-hour delay to get into New Jersey or down going south. Now imagine you had everyone who got a car wants to get out when they hear, there's electricity out and it's not coming back on. And then what do? It's one large parking lot. All it takes is people who didn't think ahead and didn't put gas in their car. Well, then you got a problem. So you're going to have a lot of people exposed and a lot of people sick, just like with Hurricane Sandy. And I fed and gave water to thousands of people during Hurricane Sandy. In fact, the radio station I've been on for 44 years, WBAI from Pacifica, all day long, I told them, come up to our studio. We're at 83rd and Broadway, Progressive Radio Network. We've set up cots. I've got food here for you. All our engineers are willing to stay on and help you 24/7. No, we don't need it. They're down on Wall Street. And right up till 7 o'clock, they were telling me no. And finally they got angry and said, stop bothering us, Gary, we're fine. Well, 2 hours later, the water was up to the stoplight. That's like, what is that? Around almost 20 feet? And nobody could get out of the building. And they went off the air. So when they could get out of the building, then they came up, and for the next 3 months they used our facilities. I could give a lot of rationale why people are not prepared. So how do we prepare? Well, first of all, ask yourself, do you need anything else you're buying? Because the one thing that will count in any crisis is cash. And a lot of people are going to make a lot of money now because trillions of dollars are going to be going to corporations that are already worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're going to buy up smaller businesses. I believe that we're going to go now into the worst depression in American history, world history. We have never seen anything like this. At the height of the Great Depression, around 1933, you had 25% of the American population was unemployed. Right now, it's at about 22% officially, but with every week, more and more millions of people. And a lot of those people are going to not have a job to go back to. Small businesses are going to get wiped. I project at least 50% of all small businesses will not be able to open if they're like restaurants, because the landlord's not giving them a rent holiday. They're going to have debt. They won't have the cash to reopen. And it takes time to reopen and get customers to coming back, especially now that people have been freaked out. So social distancing issues and hygiene issues are going to prevent people from going into certain businesses. So what are you supposed to do with all these people where there are no jobs available? And of course, nobody ever thought about this when they were exporting all these millions of jobs over the last 40 years to other countries. Now it becomes an issue. Then you have the situation of start saving now. Don't spend money on anything. If I had a house now, anywhere in a non-sustainable environment, if I had a mortgage, I'd sell it. Because the market's going to go down, and as anything attached to equity, including cash-based, like real estate, it's going to go down. How far down? Well, you had from 2008 to 2012, in some states, it was anywhere between 30 and 50% reduction in the value of that real estate, because we were in bubble economies. Things were growing too fast, and unrealistically so. So I would put as much cash as I could, not in a bank, only what you need in a bank, but try to get a qualified, and you have to look at and do your homework, which are the best credit unions to invest in, which have been stable through different ups and downs. I'd much rather put in a credit union than in a major bank. And then hold it, hold cash, hide it, gold, silver, whatever you can afford. Then stock up on food that will not go bad, like 50-pound bags of brown rice and beans and legumes and pulses. And then generally, and those will last for years and years and years. And then keep them in a dry and cool environment. Then canned goods that have a long expiration date. And now you don't want animal proteins because they have an absolute, toxic activity going on when you pass that expiration date. Even before that, they can be toxic. A lot of people get food poisoning every year because of dairy, eggs, meat, etc., salmonella. So go towards plant-based diet and have one room set aside where it's just your emergency room. If you don't need it, great. It's like insurance. I'd like to have insurance that I don't have to use, but if I need it, it's there. And also a water filter. Make sure you have a water filter system. That's important. And then have freeze-dried foods. That can last 25 years. And you can have a whole lot of different types of freeze-dried. It comes in they shrink that down, take all the air out of it, and you get like a little pack like this. And now you can have all forms of food. They have every kind of food in these freeze-dried. That would be good to have those as well. If you have a house, get yourself a little trailer, like maybe a 10-foot trailer, not expensive. And on that trailer, you just make a little, like a little lean-to. And in that's where you put 2 55 gallons of gasoline. Because if you have an emergency and you got to go someplace, the first thing you're going to find is no gas is available. If you wised up and have gas, you should always keep your engine or your tank filled with gas. Then if I have an emergency now, I can drive almost 400 miles based upon my small car without getting gas. And that gets me pretty much any place I want to go. And then I have, I have a little medical kit where I have what I would need if anything, I sprained something, cut myself. You put your colloidal silver, your manuka honey, your wild oregano oil in, astragalus, echinacea, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A. And so you have your own little medicine kit. So now I've got my bag of stuff. I got a couple pair of comfortable shoes, including shoes that if I need to go into the woods, I can. And there's shoes that you can buy that are very hard to pierce them. So if you stepped on something that normally, like a nail, will go right through, these don't. So get yourself, and always buy a shoe one size larger than your foot, so you don't get the jamming of the toe, which causes blood blisters. And get yourself some new skin, that if you do get a blister, you can put it on, it will help it. And then get yourself a walkie-talkie. And I would even get some night goggles. I would get a fold-up portable bike. They're lightweight, you can fold them up, they're like this, fold it up, and then you can unfold them, and you can drive. If there was an emergency and I want to go someplace, I'm going to leave at like 2 o'clock in the morning when there's very little traffic and very few people, and I have night goggles on, I can see to make sure I can get safely to where I'm going to go. So you want to be able to prepare for any emergency. So that's just some of the things you can do in case you have to go someplace. But to protect your house from fire, put fire hoses or a sprinkler system on the top of your roof, down the sides, and down the sides. You don't even see them. Have backup fire retardant spray, enough to cover your whole house. Have an inside sprinkler system. So, and have your lawns with sprinklers. Then have a ladder that you can put at the side. So if you got to get up on that roof, you can get up quickly. And then have a fire suit stored. And this way, if there's you or someone's in that, you don't hear anyone burning to death. Now also, if you don't want to put gasoline on your trailer, make a list of the things in your house you want. And then what is the most important to get out. So this way, when you know that fire is coming, or you know a tornado is coming, or you know a storm is coming, then you can take what you need, what is your preference, and you put them right on that trailer and you're out of there. Always have at least 3 evacuation zone maps, so you know where you're going and the secondary route that may not be crowded. Always assume that your major, like Route 75, Route 95, they're going to be packed. What if someone doesn't have the gasoline? There's always going to be someone who doesn't. That can stop and jam up all the traffic. What if someone, engine went out on them? You have 4 or 5 of these people out of 1 million people leaving. Florida had 7 million people evacuate. All kinds of problems. So know where you're going to go before you go. Have a list of the places. Like when everybody got out of Florida, they found out there was no gasoline in the state. Then when they got up to Alabama going left, or Georgia going right, all the hotels were filled, motels. No food, no lodging. So people were stranded in the middle of a hurricane in their cars. They hadn't planned. So plan 3 different routes, 3 different destinations, and then have it so that you could make reservations, because you would have a standing reservation. At least they would have your information. So you call them immediately saying, in the next state or wherever you feel it's going to be safe, I'm going to go there. Simple things like that. Then make sure that you're covered now for fire. So at least you got everything on, everything's being watered, and then have the well company put in let's say a 3 horsepower with a 4-inch well. That's as powerful a flow as you can get out of a fire truck. And you have that, it's wrapped up, you don't need it, you don't use it. But if you do, you got something that's really going to put out fires. And in my property, when fires were coming and burning down beautiful properties all around me, I turned on all the water. The houses were soaked. Everyone had fire suits. The ground was soaked, so there was nothing the fires could, stick to and burn. Neighbors, they hadn't thought of doing anything. Nothing. All right, have a backup generator, a commercial generator, one that can run your house or whatever you need. And then have backup water. You fill up your bathtubs with water, and you have maybe 50 5-gallon drums of water and tubs of water. And this way, because every time you go to flush your toilet, there's not going to be any water if you don't have a generator and don't have a water pump, and if the electricity's out. But the generator gives the water pump electricity, so now you're pumping up water. So this way you have some backup water. A lot of people don't. And so, and I believe in the future, people should be moving to small communities, even if it's part-time, and having your own space, but having The ability to work together is, having your own autonomy, and you share things in times of crisis. It's always better to have we than me. And people thought too much about what's theirs. Well, you're going to lose what's yours. How many times have we heard people going, oh, look, there's, everything was gone. We didn't get anything out. Why didn't you get anything out? You had time. You just, did you live in denial? Is there a cognitive disconnect? You know your house could burn down. Get everything out. And people don't. Or store food, and they don't. Well, this pandemic has taught people that you cannot rely upon the government, state, federal, or local. You cannot rely upon the media be honest and straightforward with you. So you got to start looking after yourself. Also, start watching some motivation films. Bruce Lipton, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, people who are telling you the truth about how to deal in crisis. So if you are going to be contained in an environment and you don't know for how long, then use that constructively. Use that to journal. Use it to work on yourself. Use it to work on your health. At least you're in an environment where you can control some things. 70% of all food is eaten outside the house, and that's almost all junk food, fast food, garbage food. Now you can select the kind of food that you want to eat and make it healthy. So at least you can have that. You could have a sprouting cabinet, and in that you can sprout at least 50 different sprouts. The sprouts only take anywhere from 4 to 7 days until you're ready to eat them. Then have microgreens. There are dozens and dozens of microgreens, like radish and daikon, that you can grow. And they're spicy and tasty and good for you and cruciferous. And also you can grow in a garage, in an attic, and in a basement, you can grow your own hydroponics. In 30 to 40 days, you can have heads of lettuce and tomatoes. They grow 1/3 the time it takes to grow in the ground. That's how quickly you can grow them. And just enough for yourself, your family. So then you got food, fresh food, and also get yourself a bidet. So in Japan, other countries, bidets are normal. People expect to be really clean after they've vacated. Here, we just think about toilet paper. You're not clean if you wipe with toilet paper. You could use every piece of tissue you could find, you're still not clean. So clean, soap and water, right? So have adequate soap, have adequate water, have enough soap for a year. And then with a bidet, you don't need to be rushing out to, instead of getting good food, and then stock up. Now, I'm a vegan, but for the average person, I'm suggesting this. Stock up on sardines, wild salmon. Those two foods you can get, they have a long life expectancy in cans, and that way you have them. Now, if you find you're not using them and they're getting near expiration date, fine. Feed them to your dog, your cat. It's good for them. It's wild. It's going to be better than the farm-raised fish, and certainly better than meat and eggs and dairy. So now you've got food. You've not buying anything you don't need. You're working every day on your health. You can get out and get some sun every day. Just stay away from people. And then be motivated. Be motivated to use this as a time to, for example, I did something yesterday with everyone. First, I had everyone write a poem about their life. Explain your life, the highs of your life, the lows, the remarkable moments. I mentioned 4 times the remarkable moments throughout your life. And mind you, life is a series of passages. Depending upon how active you are, how creative you are, you might have 10 passages. Marriage is a passage. But most people don't realize that there's an expiration date on everything in life. So we don't like to think that. We don't like to think of that there's an end to things, but there's an end to everything. And we have to prepare for that. But you can do so with maturity by making every day vital again. Bring vitalism back into your life. Be happy with the day that you're in. Make everything work. Think of solutions to everything. Where your mind thinks, okay, I've got a problem. No, I got a solution. I got a problem, I got a solution. Because some people say, I've got the problem, and then they become the problem. Their whole mind just sinks into this kind of very deep and solemn process of self-pity, fear, anger, angst, depression, anxiety, where they feel overwhelmed by the circumstances in their life that they can't handle. They're just not prepared for it. Now you can take that very same circumstance, that very same crisis, and you could say, you know something? I saw what happened with all these hurricanes and flooding, and so now we're growing stuff. We have an outdoor, right out in the backyard. We have a 20 by 40, the average size of a backyard in America. We have our own hydroponic house. We can grow all the food we want for us every day, for a whole family. 10 people could eat out of there. We're sprouting, we're microgreening vegetables and fruits, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, avocados, lemons, all can grow in there. Oh yeah, and we also have, just as a backup, we have, and then you start listing all the different foods you have. We have nut butters, and they've been, we have those in deep freeze, so they'll last for years. So we have one freezer that's just got nothing but all of our nut butters. Almond butter, pistachio butter, cashew butter, macadamia butter, walnut, pignolias, filberts, Brazil nuts. We have about 14 different types of nut butters alone, very rich and good fats. We have coconut meat and coconut oil. They'll last and last and last. We have those, we have olive oil, and we have grapeseed oil. We have all these supplements. You know, we have N-acetylcysteine and NAD and PQQ and L-carnosine and vitamin C, and we have all of our nutrients, calcium, magnesium, zinc, selenium, etc. And we have protein powders, some split pea and hemp and rice and soy. So we have everything we would need if we couldn't get anything else for the next year or more. And we have a backup generator, so we're not going to lose power. And we've got, and so you see, you start to look at this, and yes, we realize that a lot of jobs can be lost, our own jobs can be lost, so we began to do some webinars of what we know, something we can teach, something people would want to see. So we put some cameras in here, and we have our own little stage. In any case, you could make your own set. Therefore, someone in that family always has original ideas, and there are a lot of people who would like to observe this. And so you have an income by having some positive, upbeat, inspired way of teaching people something. A friend of mine, I suggested that he show people how to do artwork, another person how to do pottery, another person how to take old objects, like an old chest of drawers or old chair, and how to make them artistically interesting again. Someone else how to make unique clothes, handmade clothes, and sell them. All these people are doing great. They're not rich, but they're great. They have an income. And also, isn't it important to realize that one of the most treasured gifts we ever get in life is the unconditional love of another person that wants to share their life, their time, as rare and sacred as is on this earth, with us? Isn't that just wonderful? So I would look forward to being in an environment with someone that I could share even more time, because right now we have a big problem because so many people are working and they're so stressed and they're trying to climb those ladders of success, increasing their income and then increasing their standard of living and income, standard of living, till one day they're just working for standard of living and they forgot about quality of life. I thought we were supposed to work for quality of life, not just standard of living, keeping up with everyone and being completely insolvent in the process. So, imagine if you downsized, simplified, went to a more austere but quality time together. You didn't have to buy everything. You didn't have to have the newest of everything. In fact, you don't want everyone watching what you're doing, hearing what you're doing, so you get off the grid as much as possible. So you have some privacy to share your great thoughts with another human being. Heart to heart, harmonizing that energy, that is really something worth living for. And yet, clearly, we're having some challenges with how we communicate with people if we're always angry and always resentful by what we don't have instead of rejoicing in what we do have. So downsize, simplify, become more natural, get out with other people or share with other people who have intentional communities. environmentally sound and sustainable communities. This is the future. What I do not see, I do not see the quality of life that I saw when I came to New York on a Greyhound bus with $12 in my pocket, knowing no one. And I had so much joy and excitement, culture I was an experience with. I come from a little city in West Virginia, Parkersburg. I wasn't exposed to all this. So I thought the people were great, far smarter than me, so I could, I would sit in silence because I had nothing to contribute. They were very sophisticated. I was not. So just imagine now appreciating what you've had in the past. I think all of us who grew up as baby boomers appreciate the lack of excess stress that was in our lives at that time. We didn't have that. Things were simpler. We had to do more. We were more self-sufficient. Our word meant something. Manners, morals, ethics meant something. Caring about our community and each other meant something. Our family was extremely important because our family had something that you can't get when you're young. The oracles, the ones who really know the answers that we need. And so these are the things that are important, but we're not going to have that now. We have fractured so much of what is essential for people to be able to survive. So we're going to have green zones, areas that are for wealthy people, gated communities. But what about the 80% of the people who can't get into those, who don't have the money or social position? How are they supposed to be treated? I see the great divide coming now, not in the future. And I see debt overwhelming our system. So I want you to be able to use a crisis to your advantage, and that you'll be prepared for it. So you won't be broken down, you'll have breakthroughs. You'll use your imagination, or you'll have hobbies. You'll read again, actual books. You'll be able to sit and look in someone's eyes and communicate. You'll be able to spend more time in nature. But I believe that the day of the big city for the average person, the working person, that's gone. They can't afford to be there. In fact, a lot of professionals can't afford to be living in a city. They are there, but they're running up debt. And that's why they have to work so hard, and that's why they're stressed, and that's why their relationships are stressed, and that's where all these highly contentious arguments come from. Why you and them blaming each other, triangulating who did what wrong instead of who did what right. Because for everyone who's in a city like Los Angeles or New York that will not be sustainable for the average person, you'll have people living in more rural environments, smaller towns, smaller communities where people care about one another. When I moved down to Texas, a little town not far from here, Tioga, about 230 people. About 3 months after I was there, I opened the door one day, front door of my house, and there was a bushel basket of peaches. No note. And then every day someone was bringing stuff and giving it. And so I asked the mayor, a little tiny town, the mayor was also my plumber. So I said, people are leaving, food. He said, well, that's just their way of saying welcome to our community. And I thought that was really cool. And I saw some kids, and they were hanging out at a place called Clark's Barbecue, very famous barbecue. People would take a helicopter from downtown Dallas, which was only an hour away from where Healing Springs was, right up to Clark's Barbecue. And right outside this 200-acre ranch I had, 100 acres that had all the pastures, and the back 100 acres on Lake Erie Roberts. It was right across the street, train tracks. And I asked them, what are you doing? And they said, well, nothing to do. What do you mean? Well, there's nothing we can do at night. We don't have the athletics, we have a small high school, and we're too young to go into Pilot Point or any of the other communities where the colleges are because we're too young. What would you like to? Well, sports is great. Okay. So I built them a soccer field, and I built them a baseball field, and I built them a running track, and I built them a softball and a gym. And I built for the adults an old Wild West town. And I didn't know that it was Gene Autry's birthplace. They started bringing me all kinds of photographs and saddles and all kinds of stuff. And I made a whole old-time saloon where they could come in, no alcohol, but they could come in and dance. And everybody then had something that they could do that was positive and not get drunk, not do drugs. I don't support that. And I said, as long as you keep the place clean, you can use it. And they did, never had a problem. So you see, when I think about the remarkable moments in rural America that I've experienced, those are the ones that come to mind. People caring about you simply because you're a human being. And since when did we stop valuing other people's lives? We already don't value the poor as much as the rich, the regular person to a celebrity, those who work at a regular job to someone who's a careerist on Wall Street or in any other area, someone who has no degrees to advanced degrees. So we separate people by all these artificial standards without realizing that what makes them different is not what's relevant, it's what makes them the same that is relevant. Kindness, creativity, caring, the things that we appreciate in another person. So now I see this crisis that we're in as a breakthrough, because for those people who never thought it would happen to them, it couldn't happen to them, and it has happened to them. So now, preventing the next crisis, and there'll be a lot more crises, I believe that within the next 24 months, Florida will be hit with not one, but two Category 5 and possibly Category 6. We had the first ever recorded Category 6 hit the Bahamas and leveled it. Outer band winds at 224 miles an hour. You hit a series of islands, that's what the Bahamas are, like I think somewhere around 700 little islands in Freeport. You hit a town like Miami with a Category 6, it's gone. And one more Category 5 hitting Florida, and it's over. You'll have a mass exodus out of there because people haven't recovered from the last one. So people are not going to say, yeah, we can stay here. No, they're going to go. So I'm telling people, go now, sell now. Don't live in non-sustainable places, because it's not if you're going to end up with another disaster, it's when. And it's not our places like New York, great to visit, by the way. Lincoln Center, the Village, Broadway, Central Park, Prospect Park, the different cultures in Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Harlem, Bronx. Wonderful places, great people, but no longer great for everyone, no longer viable for everyone, no longer sustainable for everyone. And now all those businesses closed. Before the coronavirus closed the small businesses, 37% of all the small businesses in all the boroughs were closed because the landlords control everything. So use the crisis to your advantage. Get out of a business that all you're going to be doing is going into debt, using your life savings, and not have anything of quality of life. Be in the right place instead of the wrong place, because you can't change the wrong place, but you can create the right place. So this way, this crisis doesn't have to be about deaths and suffering and privations and poverty induced within 4 weeks, 30 million Americans out of work, and a lot of those businesses bankrupt. You can also say, that this got my attention. Now I'm going to do something proactively so I don't have this happen again. Thank you.